The morning sun painted golden streaks across the playground's metal equipment, warming the crisp spring air. Ethan Miller walked beside his daughter Lily, watching as she dragged her feet through the wood chips that covered the ground. Her small hand gripped his tightly, and he could feel her tension as they approached the busy playground. "Look, sweetheart," Ethan said gently, pointing to the empty swing set. "Your favorite spot is free right now." Lily's eyes darted toward the swings, then to the group of rowdy kids playing nearby. She pressed closer to her father's side, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe we should come back later, Daddy." Ethan's heart ached. Since losing her mother, Lily had become more withdrawn, more hesitant to join in with other children. He knelt down beside her, meeting her eyes. "Remember what we talked about? Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing something even when we are scared." A tiny smile tugged at the corners of Lily's mouth. "That's what Mommy used to say." "That's right." Ethan squeezed her hand. "And she was the bravest person we knew, wasn't she?" Lily nodded, straightening her shoulders just a little. After another moment's hesitation, she took a few tentative steps toward the swings. Ethan followed, staying close but letting her lead the way. The wooden swing seat creaked as Lily climbed on. Her feet barely touched the ground, but she gave herself a small push, starting to swing back and forth. Ethan's chest swelled with pride as he watched her confidence grow with each gentle arc. "Higher, Daddy," Lily called out, her voice stronger now. Ethan moved behind her, ready to give her a gentle push. That's when a larger boy barreled through, shoving Lily roughly off the swing. She tumbled onto the wood chips with a startled cry. The boy jumped onto the now empty swing, laughing. "Hey!" A deep voice boomed from nearby. "That's showing her who's boss, son." Ethan helped Lily up, checking her for injuries. She had scratches on her palms, and tears welled in her eyes. Looking up, he saw a broad-shouldered man in a leather jacket, Brad Thompson, grinning and giving his son a thumbs up. Something shifted inside Ethan. The usual urge to avoid conflict warred with a deeper instinct, the need to protect his daughter. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Excuse me," Ethan said, his voice firm but controlled. He stepped forward, positioning himself between Lily and Brad. "Your son just pushed my daughter off the swing. She could have been hurt." Brad's grin turned into a sneer. "Kids need to learn to toughen up. World ain't gonna coddle them forever. There's a difference between being tough and being cruel," Ethan replied, maintaining his calm tone despite the anger building in his chest. "What your son did wasn't okay, and encouraging him makes it worse." Brad took a threatening step forward, puffing out his chest. "You calling me a bad parent?" Other parents had stopped their conversations, turning to watch. The playground grew quieter, tension crackling in the air. Ethan felt Lily's small hand slip into his, trembling slightly. "I'm saying we all have a responsibility to teach our children kindness," Ethan said, standing his ground. His voice remained steady, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "What message do they learn when we praise them for hurting others?" "Listen here, you self-righteous," Brad started, his face reddening. "No," Ethan cut him off, surprising himself with his firmness. "You listen. That swing set is for everyone. Your son can wait his turn, just like any other child. And if I see him pushing anyone else off, we're going to have another conversation." Brad's mouth opened and closed, clearly unused to being challenged. He took another step forward, fists clenched. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise to protect not just my daughter, but any child from bullying." Ethan met Brad's glare without flinching. "We can make this playground a better place, or a worse one. The choice is yours." The silence that had fallen over the playground was absolute. Parents stood frozen, watching the confrontation with held breath. Even the children had stopped playing, sensing the gravity of the moment. Then, from somewhere behind them, a single person started clapping. The sound was joined by another, then another, until the playground erupted in applause. Ethan blinked in surprise, his grip on Lily's hand tightening. "It's about time someone stood up to them," a grandmother called out, pushing herself up from a nearby bench. A young mother stepped forward, her own children clustering behind her. "We've watched that boy bully kids for months, but nobody dared say anything." More parents approached, forming a supportive circle around Ethan and Lily. Brad's face had turned from red to purple, but he seemed to shrink under the united front of the community. His son had already abandoned the swing, skulking back to his father's side. "Thank you," a father said, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. "My daughter stopped wanting to come here because of them. Maybe now things will change." Ethan stood there, stunned by the outpouring of support. He felt Lily's grip on his hand loosen slightly, and when he looked down, he saw something that made his heart soar, a small, proud smile on his daughter's face. "You were brave, Daddy," she whispered, and in that moment, Ethan knew he had done more than just stand up to a bully. He had shown his daughter what real strength looked like, not the kind that pushes others down, but the kind that helps them stand up. Parents and grandparents formed a protective circle around Ethan and Lily, their faces beaming with appreciation. A woman in her 30s with graying temples stepped forward, her eyes bright with emotion. "I've been bringing my kids here for years," she said, squeezing Ethan's arm. "Brad and his son have always acted like they owned the place. None of us had the courage to say anything." Lily pressed closer to her father's side, but her usual anxious frown had softened. An elderly man wearing a Navy baseball cap nodded vigorously. "That man's been a menace to this playground. About time someone showed him kindness doesn't mean weakness." A mother with curly red hair held up her phone, recording the scene. "Do you mind?" she asked Ethan. "People need to see this. Need to know it's okay to stand up to bullies without becoming one." Ethan felt his cheeks grow warm. He wasn't used to attention, preferring the quiet of his workshop where he spent his days crafting furniture. But seeing Lily's small smile, the first real one in weeks, made the discomfort worth it. "Your daughter is beautiful," said a grandmother, her silver hair gleaming in the sunlight. "She looks just like you around the eyes." She turned to Lily. "You must be very proud of your daddy." Lily's smile grew wider, and she nodded, though she still kept close to Ethan's leg. He placed a protective hand on her shoulder, amazed at how this morning had transformed from a routine playground visit into something so meaningful. More parents approached, each sharing their own stories about Brad's intimidation. A young father described how Brad's son had pushed his toddler off the slide last month. A teacher mentioned seeing similar behavior at school but feeling powerless to address it fully. "The way you handled it," said a mom pushing an empty stroller, "that's exactly what we should be teaching our kids. Firm but kind. Standing up for what's right without throwing punches." The crowd stayed respectful of Lily's space, seeming to sense her shyness, but their warmth was palpable. Children resumed playing, their laughter filling the air again, but now it felt different, lighter somehow, as if a heavy cloud had lifted from the playground. As the excitement began to settle, Ethan checked his watch. It was nearly lunchtime, and he could see Lily was getting tired from all the attention. He started making polite goodbyes, grateful when people understood and made way for them to leave. At the playground gate, a tall man with salt and pepper hair stopped them. He looked about Ethan's age, with kind eyes and weathered hands that spoke of manual labor. "Hey," he said quietly, patting Ethan on the back, "you just stood up for all of us." His words carried the weight of truth, making Ethan's throat tight with emotion. The walk home was peaceful, with Lily skipping every few steps. She held Ethan's hand loosely now, not with the desperate grip from earlier. They passed the corner store where the owner waved at them through the window, past the row of maple trees just starting to bud, and finally reached their modest two-story house. Inside, Ethan headed straight for the kitchen, pulling out a pot for mac and cheese, Lily's favorite comfort food. As he filled the pot with water, Lily settled at the kitchen table with her coloring books, humming softly to herself. The sound made his heart swell. It had been so long since he'd heard her hum. While waiting for the water to boil, Ethan pulled out his phone to check the time. A string of notifications lit up his screen. His eyebrows rose as he saw that the video from the playground had already been uploaded to social media. The number of shares was climbing steadily, accompanied by supportive comments and heart emojis. "What would you think about some extra cheese on top today?" he asked Lily, trying to keep his voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in his stomach at seeing the video spreading so quickly. "Yes, please." Lily looked up from her coloring, her face bright with simple joy. She had picked her favorite book, the one with animals, and was carefully filling in an elephant with purple crayon. The water began to boil, and Ethan poured in the pasta, the familiar motions of cooking helping to ground him. As he stirred the pot, he watched his daughter color, her small face peaceful and concentrated. Whatever came from that video going viral, he knew he'd made the right choice today. Seeing Lily smile again was worth any amount of unexpected attention. The kitchen filled with the warm, comforting smell of cheese sauce as Ethan added the ingredients, letting Lily shake in the cheese powder herself, her favorite part. Outside their kitchen window, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across their small backyard, where a half-finished treehouse waited for the next weekend's work. Inside, the sound of Lily's humming mixed with the bubbling pot and the scratch of her crayon against paper, creating a symphony of contentment that felt both ordinary and extraordinary. Ethan's phone buzzed against his nightstand early Sunday morning, rattling so intensely it nearly vibrated off the edge. He blinked away sleep, fumbling to silence it before the noise could wake Lily in the next room. But the buzzing continued, notification after notification lighting up his screen. "What in the world?" he mumbled, squinting at the brightness. The video from yesterday's playground confrontation had exploded overnight. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments, all praising his calm handling of the situation. The local community Facebook group had picked it up first, then it spread to larger parenting forums. Now it was trending on multiple platforms. "Dad?" Lily appeared in his doorway, still in her purple unicorn pajamas. "Why is your phone making so much noise?" Ethan sat up, patting the bed beside him. "Remember that lady who recorded what happened at the playground yesterday? Looks like a lot of people saw it." Lily climbed up next to him, peering at his phone screen. Her eyes widened at the numbers. "That many people watched you stand up to that mean dad?" "Apparently so, sweetie." Ethan scrolled through some comments, careful to shield Lily from any negative ones, though there were surprisingly few. Most praised his restraint and dignity. The doorbell rang, startling them both. Through the window, Ethan spotted Mrs. Chen from next door, holding what looked like a fresh-baked loaf of bread. "Good morning," she called out when he opened the door. "I saw the video, everyone's talking about it. You showed real courage yesterday." She pressed the still warm bread into his hands. "We need more fathers like you in this community." Throughout the morning, more neighbors stopped by. Mr. Peterson brought coffee and donuts. The Ramirez family dropped off a casserole. Each visitor shared similar sentiments. They'd been inspired by his stand against bullying, impressed by his calm strength. Around noon, Lily's teacher, Miss Thompson, called. "Mr. Miller," she said warmly, "I just wanted you to know how proud our school community island." Several parents forwarded me the video. "We've been dealing with similar issues from that family at school events. You've given others the courage to speak up. Thanks for watching. And that you can noted. Knock. Ethan felt his cheeks warm. "I just did what any parent would do, but that's just it. You did it the right way. No shouting, no threats. You showed our students exactly how to handle conflict." After hanging up, Ethan watched Lily playing in their small backyard through the kitchen window. She was humming to herself, something she hadn't done since before her mother passed. For the first time in months, he felt a flutter of hope. Maybe their quiet life was finally turning a corner. But that hope dimmed 3 days later. Ethan was walking home from picking up Lily at school when a familiar truck screeched to a halt beside them. Brad Thompson jumped out, his face red with anger. "Hey, Miller," he shouted, causing Lily to shrink behind her father. "You think you're some kind of internet hero now?" Ethan gently guided Lily behind him. "I'm not looking for trouble, Brad. Let's just go our separate ways." Too late for that. Brad stepped closer, jabbing a finger at Ethan's chest. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. That video made me look like some monster parent. My boss saw it. My wife's friends all shared it. You did that to yourself," Ethan said quietly, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Nobody made your son push my daughter, and nobody made you laugh about it." Brad's face twisted into an ugly sneer. "You don't know anything about raising boys. They need to be tough. But I guess a soft single dad like you wouldn't understand that." He glanced at Lily with contempt. "No wonder your kid's such a scared little mouse." Ethan felt heat rise in his chest, but he remembered his late wife's words. "Kindness is strength. We're done here," he said firmly, steering Lily around Brad. "This isn't over, Miller," Brad called after them. "Everyone's going to learn what kind of father you really are." That evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Ethan heard a soft rustle by the front door. Looking down, he spotted a plain white envelope that had been slipped underneath. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. The letterhead made his blood run cold. Child Protective Services. The letter was brief but devastating. They'd received an anonymous complaint about his parenting and needed to schedule a home visit to investigate concerns about anger management issues and emotional instability. Ethan sank onto the couch, the paper crumpling in his shaking hands. The one thing he feared most, losing Lily now, loomed as a real possibility. All because he'd finally stood up to a bully. Not with fists or threats, but with dignity and calm strength. He glanced at the family photo on the wall, taken just months before his wife's illness. Her smile seemed to mock him now. He'd promised her he'd keep their daughter safe, give her a good life. But what if trying to protect Lily had just put their little family at risk? The sound of Lily's quiet breathing drifted down the hallway from her room. Ethan smoothed out the crumpled letter, forcing himself to read it again more carefully. He hadn't done anything wrong. He had witnesses, an entire playground full of them. He even had video evidence of how he handled conflict. But as he stared at the official letterhead, none of that seemed to matter. The system now had its eyes on him, and one wrong move could cost him everything. The doorbell's chime made Ethan's stomach twist into knots. He glanced at his watch, 2:00 p.m. exactly. The social worker was right on time. Through the kitchen doorway, he could see Lily at the table, bent over her coloring books, her dark curls falling forward as she carefully filled in the lines with her favorite markers. "Just keep coloring, sweetheart," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I need to talk to someone for a little while." Taking a deep breath, Ethan opened the front door. A woman in her 50s stood there, dressed in a navy blazer and carrying a leather portfolio. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore wire-rimmed glasses that reminded him of a librarian. "Mr. Miller? I'm Miss Patricia Walker from Child Protective Services." She extended her hand with a professional smile. "Thank you for accommodating this visit on such short notice." Ethan shook her hand, noting her firm grip. "Please, come in." He stepped aside, gesturing toward the living room. His eyes darted around, suddenly seeing his home through a stranger's lens. The slightly worn couch, the basket of Lily's toys in the corner, the family photos on the walls. Miss Walker settled into the armchair while Ethan perched on the edge of the couch. She pulled out a notepad and pen, her movements methodical and practiced. "Mr. Miller, I want to be transparent with you," she began. "We received an anonymous complaint expressing concerns about potential anger management issues and their impact on your daughter's well-being." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. He clenched his hands in his lap, keeping his voice level. "I understand, but I can assure you, there's absolutely no basis for those concerns." Miss Walker nodded, her expression neutral. "Why don't you tell me about your typical day with Lily? What's your routine like?" For the next 30 minutes, Ethan described their daily life, making breakfast together, walking Lily to school, his carpentry work scheduled around her school hours, their evening homework sessions, and bedtime stories. His voice grew steadier as he talked about the life he'd built for them after Sarah's death. "And what about support systems?" Miss Walker asked, making notes. "Do you have family nearby?" "My parents are in Florida, but we have wonderful neighbors. Mrs. Chen next door often helps with Lily after school, and there's a strong community at Lily's school." Ethan paused, then added softly, "We lost my wife Lily's mother 3 years ago to cancer. It hasn't been easy, but we've worked hard to create stability." Miss Walker's pen stopped moving. She looked up, her expression softening slightly. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Miller." The sound of markers dropping drew their attention to the kitchen. "Dad?" Lily called out. "Can I have some water?" "Of course, sweetie. I'll get it for you." "Actually," Miss Walker interjected, "would it be all right if I spoke with Lily for a few minutes? And perhaps you could show me around the house?" Ethan's heart raced, but he nodded. "Of course." They walked to the kitchen, where Lily looked up curiously from her artwork. "Hello, Lily," Miss Walker said warmly. "That's beautiful coloring you're doing. Would you mind chatting with me for a bit while your dad shows me around?" Lily glanced at Ethan, who gave her an encouraging smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll be right back." As they walked through the house, Ethan pointed out Lily's room with its butterfly decals and bookshelf, the bathroom with its step stool so she could reach the sink, and the backyard where he'd built her a small garden box. Miss Walker took notes, occasionally asking questions about safety measures and household routines. When they returned to the kitchen, Lily was showing Miss Walker her collection of drawings. "And this one's of me and Dad at the playground," she explained, pointing to a crayon sketch of two stick figures by some swings. "The playground?" Miss Walker's tone was casual, but Ethan detected the underlying interest. "Yeah, Dad stood up to a mean boy and his daddy who were being bullies." Lily's voice held a note of pride. Miss Walker turned to Ethan. "Is this about the incident that was recorded and shared online?" Ethan nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. "Yes, I spoke up when another parent was encouraging his son's bullying behavior. I remained calm and non-confrontational throughout the entire interaction." "I see." Miss Walker made a final note, then closed her portfolio. "Thank you both for your time today. Mr. Miller, would you walk me to the door?" At the front door, Miss Walker turned to face him. "Mr. Miller, I need to be clear, these investigations are confidential, but I can tell you that the complaint specifically mentioned anger management concerns related to a recent public confrontation." Ethan's suspicions about Brad's involvement crystallized into certainty. He felt a wave of betrayal wash over him. His moment of standing up for his daughter was being twisted into something ugly. "I understand," he managed to say. "What happens next? I'll file my report, and you'll hear from us within 2 weeks. Based on what I've seen today, I wouldn't be too concerned." She gave him a small, professional smile. "Keep doing what you're doing, Mr. Miller." After she left, Ethan stood at the door for a long moment, trying to steady his breathing. The thought that someone could question his fitness as a parent, could potentially threaten his relationship with Lily, made him feel physically ill. "Dad?" Lily's small voice came from behind him. "Is everything okay?" Ethan turned and knelt beside her, pulling her into a gentle hug. "Everything's going to be fine, sweetheart." He managed to keep his voice steady, but inside, he felt shaken to his very core. The weight of being a single parent had never felt heavier than in this moment. The afternoon sun warmed Ethan's back as he walked hand in hand with Lily down the familiar sidewalk to her elementary school. The maple trees lining the street cast dancing shadows on the concrete, and a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of nearby flowering bushes. Despite the pleasant weather, worry gnawed at his stomach after the morning's visit from the social worker. "Good morning, Ethan," called Mrs. Peterson, another parent, waving from the school gates. Her genuine smile helped ease some of his tension. Other parents nodded and smiled too, some stepping forward to pat his shoulder or offer words of encouragement. "We saw that video," said Mr. Chen, whose daughter was in Lily's class. "You handled that situation exactly right." Lily's grip on Ethan's hand tightened, and he glanced down to see her standing a little straighter, pride visible in her shy smile. The support felt like a warm blanket wrapped around both of them. Sarah Martinez, whose son was in the 3rd grade, approached them with purpose. "Ethan, I've been meaning to talk to you," she said, adjusting her purse strap. "Our church group meets on Wednesday evenings, and we'd love to have you join us this week. We're planning something special for the community." Ethan hesitated. Since losing his wife, he'd grown cautious about social commitments. But Lily's eyes lit up at the invitation, and he found himself nodding. "What time?" 7 o'clock at the First Community Church," Sarah replied. "We'll have cookies," she added with a wink at Lily. Wednesday evening arrived faster than expected. Ethan parked his old pickup truck in the church lot, its familiar scratches and dents a contrast to the newer vehicles around it. Inside the church's community room, about 20 people sat in a circle of chairs, chatting warmly. "Welcome." Sarah waved them over. "Everyone, this is Ethan and Lily Miller." The group's genuine warmth surprised him. They'd already seen the video, of course, but their interest went beyond that. They asked about his carpentry work, about Lily's favorite subjects in school, treating them like old friends rather than local celebrities. "We've been inspired by what happened at the playground," announced Rebecca, the group's leader. She was a grandmother with silver hair and kind eyes. "We want to organize a community kindness day, a chance for everyone to come together and celebrate the power of standing up for what's right, with dignity and respect, just like you showed us, Ethan." Ethan shifted in his chair, uncomfortable with the attention. "I just did what anyone would do." "But that's just it," said Tom, a retired teacher. "Many of us wanted to speak up about that bully, but we didn't. You showed us that one person's courage can make a difference." They outlined their plans. A Saturday gathering in the park with food, games, and speakers sharing stories about kindness and courage. Local businesses had already offered to sponsor the event. "What do you think, Lily?" Sarah asked gently. "Would you like to help make decorations?" Lily, who had been quietly munching on chocolate chip cookies, nodded enthusiastically. "Can I make a big poster?" she asked, her voice stronger than usual. "Of course, sweetheart," Rebecca said, passing her some craft supplies. "Why don't you start now while we work out the details?" While the adults discussed logistics, Lily spread out on the floor with colored paper and markers. Ethan watched her work, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration as she carefully drew letters spelling out "Be kind" in rainbow colors. The meeting lasted an hour, and by the end, Lily had completed most of her poster. She exclaimed, holding it up proudly. The letters weren't perfectly straight, and the hearts she'd drawn were a bit lopsided, but to Ethan, it was beautiful. "That's wonderful, honey," he said, his heart swelling at her enthusiasm. For the first time since the social worker's visit, he felt truly hopeful. The drive home was filled with Lily's excited chatter about the upcoming event. She wanted to make more posters, help with the games, maybe even say something on stage. Ethan listened, amazed at how this shy little girl who'd been so quiet since losing her mother was suddenly bubbling with ideas and energy. At home, Lily insisted on working on another poster before bedtime. Ethan sat with her at the kitchen table, helping her spell words like community and together. Her small hands moved carefully across the paper, each letter formed with determination. "Time for bed, sweetheart," Ethan said when he noticed her starting to yawn. "Just 5 more minutes?" she pleaded, but her drooping eyes told a different story. Ethan helped her get ready for bed, making sure she brushed her teeth and changed into her favorite unicorn pajamas. As he tucked her into bed, pulling her warm quilt up to her chin, Lily looked up at him with serious eyes. "I'm proud of you, Daddy," she whispered. Those simple words hit him hard, bringing unexpected tears to his eyes. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I love you, Princess." "Love you too," she mumbled, already drifting off to sleep. Later, lying in his own bed, Ethan stared at the ceiling. Lily's words echoed in his mind, mixing with memories of the day, the supportive parents at school, the warm welcome at the church, his daughter's growing confidence. These moments strengthened him, like pieces of armor against whatever Brad might try next. But still, sleep eluded him. The threat of losing Lily loomed in his thoughts, a dark cloud overshadowing even the brightest moments. He rolled onto his side, looking at the empty space where his wife used to sleep, wishing he could ask her advice, hear her reassurance. The moonlight filtered through his bedroom window, casting soft shadows on the wall. In the quiet of the night, Ethan lay awake, holding on to the image of Lily's proud smile as she worked on her poster, trying to let that light outshine his fears. The morning sun painted the town square in golden light as Ethan and Lily walked hand in hand toward the gathering crowd. Colorful balloons bobbed in the gentle breeze, tied to white folding tables arranged in a horseshoe shape. Hand-painted banners proclaimed Community Kindness Day in cheerful letters, and the smell of fresh-baked cookies and coffee filled the air. "Look, Daddy." Lily pointed to her poster hanging among dozens of others on a display board. Her artwork showed stick figures holding hands around a playground, with careful lettering that read, "Be kind like my dad." Ethan squeezed her hand, his heart swelling. "It looks perfect up there, sweetheart." Mrs. Chen from the bakery waved them over to her booth, where rows of cupcakes formed a rainbow pattern. "These are for our guests of honor," she said, presenting Lily with a cupcake topped with pink frosting. "And this one's for you, Ethan." She handed him one decorated with a tiny heart. More familiar faces greeted them as they made their way through the square. Mr. Peterson, Lily's science teacher, showed them the kindness pledge wall where children were adding their handprints in bright paint. The local Boy Scout troop demonstrated their Random Acts of Kindness project, helping elderly visitors carry chairs and packages. "Ethan," called Sarah Martinez, the church group organizer. She hurried over, clipboard in hand. "We're about ready for your speech. Are you okay to go on in 5 minutes?" He nodded, though his stomach tightened. Public speaking had never been his strong suit, but Sarah's warm smile helped ease his nerves. "Just speak from your heart," she said, patting his arm. "That's what got us all here in the first place." The crowd gathered around a small stage decorated with paper chains and more balloons. Lily sat in the front row between Mrs. Chen and her best friend from school, giving him a thumbs up. Ethan climbed the 3 steps to the microphone, his hands slightly shaking as he unfolded his notes. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice steadier than he expected. "I'm not used to speaking in front of crowds. Usually, I'm in my workshop, letting my woodwork do the talking." A gentle laugh rippled through the audience. "A lot of you know me as the dad from that video, but that's not why we're here today. We're here because this community understands something my late wife Rachel always said: kindness is strength." His voice caught slightly on her name, and he paused, taking a deep breath. "When I lost Rachel 3 years ago, I worried I wouldn't be strong enough to raise Lily alone. But strength isn't about being tough or scary. Real strength is getting up every morning and choosing to be kind, even when it's hard. Real strength is teaching our children that standing up for others doesn't mean pushing people down." Ethan looked at Lily, who was beaming up at him. "My daughter is learning that lesson from all of you. Every parent who brings cookies to school events, every neighbor who waves hello, every teacher who stays late to help with homework. You're all showing her what true strength looks like." He noticed several people wiping their eyes, and Mrs. Chen had wrapped her arm around Lily's shoulders. "This event isn't about me or that day at the playground. It's about all of us choosing kindness over fear, community over division. It's about believing that one small act of compassion can ripple out and change lives." "Rachel would have loved this," he continued, his voice growing stronger. "She would have been first in line to help, probably with a batch of her famous snickerdoodles that I could never quite get right." More knowing chuckles from those who had known her. "So today, let's celebrate not just kindness, but the strength it takes to be kind. Let's show our children that standing up for what's right doesn't require fists or harsh words. It just needs an open heart and the courage to care." The applause started before he finished his last word, swelling until it filled the square. Lily ran up to the stage and threw her arms around his waist. Ethan held her close, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't experienced since Rachel's passing, a sense of belonging, of joy, of possibility. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Ethan and Lily visited every booth, from the friendship bracelet station to the letter-writing table, where kids were creating cards for nursing home residents. They joined a group game of kindness bingo and helped serve lemonade to thirsty volunteers. As the sun began to set, they said their goodbyes and walked home, their arms full of crafts and leftover treats. Lily skipped ahead, humming a song she'd learned at the event. "Can we do this again next year, Dad?" she asked, twirling around to face him. "I hope so, sweetie," he replied, watching her skip forward again. His heart felt lighter than it had in years, but that lightness vanished the moment they reached their front porch. A thick manila envelope was propped against their door, the official letterhead of Child Protective Services clearly visible in the fading light. "Why don't you go put your things in your room, Lily?" Ethan managed to keep his voice steady. "I'll heat up some leftovers for dinner." Once Lily disappeared inside, Ethan sank into the porch chair, his hands trembling as he opened the envelope. The words "summons to custody hearing" jumped out at him in bold black letters. The rest of the text blurred as tears filled his eyes. All the joy and hope from the day seemed to drain away, leaving him hollow. Brad was really doing it. He was trying to take away the one person Ethan had left in the world. He dropped his head into his hands, the paper crumpling in his grip, feeling more alone than ever despite the community's show of support just hours before. Through the window, he could hear Lily singing as she arranged her new crafts, completely unaware that their world might be about to shatter. The kitchen clock ticked past midnight as Ethan sat at the worn wooden table, the harsh white paper of the custody summons glaring under the overhead light. His coffee had long gone cold, forgotten beside a stack of bills and Lily's latest art project. The legal document's words blurred together, but their meaning stabbed at his heart. His fitness as a parent was being questioned. A soft padding of feet made him look up. Lily stood in the doorway in her favorite star-patterned pajamas, her brown hair tousled from sleep. She clutched her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops, tight against her chest. "Daddy?" Her voice was small, worried. "Are you okay?" Ethan quickly folded the summons and slipped it into his shirt pocket. Hey, sweetheart. What are you doing up so late? I heard you down here. Lily shifted from foot to foot, her bare toes curling against the cool linoleum. You look sad. Come here. Ethan opened his arms, and Lily climbed onto his lap, settling against his chest like she used to when she was smaller. The familiar weight of her brought both comfort and a fresh wave of fear. It's just some grown-up stuff I need to take care of. Nothing for you to worry about. Promise, promise. He kissed the top of her head, breathing in the sweet smell of her strawberry shampoo. Now, let's get you back to bed, young lady. You've got school tomorrow. After tucking Lily back in, Ethan barely slept. He watched the sunrise paint his bedroom ceiling pink, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When his alarm finally buzzed, he felt hollow and exhausted. Later that morning, while Lily was at school, Ethan found himself walking next door to Mr. Harris's house. The elderly veteran was in his usual spot, tending to his prized rose garden. Despite the autumn chill, he wore just a light sweater, his weathered hands steady as he pruned the branches. "Morning, son," Mr. Harris called out, looking up from his work. His keen eyes took in Ethan's troubled expression. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Ethan leaned against the white picket fence. "That obvious, huh? Come on in." Mr. Harris set down his pruning shears. "I just made a fresh pot of coffee." Inside, Mr. Harris's kitchen was warm and lived in, filled with photos of his late wife and his time in the service. He poured 2 mugs of coffee and settled into his usual chair, waiting patiently while Ethan gathered his thoughts. Finally, Ethan pulled out the crumpled summons. Brad filed a complaint. "There's going to be a custody hearing." His voice cracked. "They could take Lily away from me." Mr. Harris studied the paper, his expression grave. "That's quite a battle you're facing. I don't know what to do." Ethan gripped his mug tight. "I tried to do the right thing, standing up to him at the playground. Now, it might cost me everything. Let me tell you something about battles, son." Mr. Harris set the summons down and leaned forward, his voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "They aren't won by fists. They're won by standing steady when the world shakes. By showing up day after day, doing what's right, even when it's hard. But what if that's not enough? It will be." Mr. Harris's eyes crinkled with determination. "Because you won't be standing alone. This community knows who you are, Ethan. We've seen how you've raised that little girl with nothing but love and grace since Sarah passed. It's time to let us help you fight." Something sparked in Ethan's chest, not quite hope, but an ember of possibility. "What do you suggest? Start gathering evidence of who you really are. Letters from people who know you, who've seen you with Lily. Teachers, neighbors, church folks. Show them the truth about your character." That afternoon, Ethan began his mission. He visited Lily's school, where her teacher, Mrs. Chen, immediately wrote a glowing letter about Lily's progress and Ethan's involvement in her education. The church group who organized Kindness Day contributed a joint letter describing his impact on the community. Neighbors stopped by throughout the day, each with their own stories to share. The elderly couple across the street wrote about how Ethan always shoveled their walk in winter. A single mom described the time he fixed her daughter's bike for free. Even the teenage boy who mowed lawns in summer wrote about how Ethan had taught him to change oil and showed him what a good man looked like. By evening, Ethan had a thick folder of letters. He sat at the kitchen table again, but this time surrounded by words of support instead of legal threats. Each page testified to the life he'd built, the father he'd become, the community that had grown around them. The sound of paper rustling made him look up. Lily stood in the doorway, holding something behind her back. "I made you something, Daddy." She brought out a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings. It showed 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands beneath a rainbow. Above them, in careful letters that still sometimes went backward, she had written, "We are strong." Ethan's vision blurred with tears as he opened his arms. Lily ran to him, and he hugged her tight, the folder of letters crinkling between them. For a moment, they just held each other, father and daughter, their hearts beating in sync. "We sure are strong," Ethan whispered into her hair. "We sure are." The law office smelled of old books and coffee. Ethan shifted in the leather chair, watching as Sarah Bennett, a local attorney, reviewed the custody summons. Sunlight streamed through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across her desk. She'd called him yesterday, offering to help after seeing his viral video. "The good news," Sarah said, looking up from the papers, "is that this complaint is clearly retaliatory. The timing alone raises red flags." She adjusted her reading glasses, her kind eyes meeting Ethan's. "And from what I've seen in that video and heard around town, you're exactly the kind of father every child needs." Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly, but worry still gnawed at his stomach. "I just can't lose her," he said quietly. "She's all I have." "Listen, Ethan." Sarah leaned forward, her voice firm but gentle. "I'm taking this case pro bono because what's happening to you isn't right. That viral video shows exactly who you are, a father who stands up for his child with dignity and restraint. We're going to make sure the judge sees that." They spent the next hour preparing his testimony. Sarah had him practice describing the playground incident, guiding him to focus on his emotional state and decision-making process. "Remember," she advised, "they're not just evaluating what happened. They're evaluating you as a parent. Talk about why you chose to handle it peacefully. Show them your heart." Ethan nodded, running a hand through his hair. "I kept thinking about what I wanted Lily to learn. That you can be strong without being cruel." "Perfect." Sarah made a note. "That's exactly what we need. Authentic, thoughtful responses that show your priorities as a father." The door opened, and Sarah's assistant brought in a stack of papers. "These just came in," she said. "More character reference letters for Mr. Miller." Sarah smiled as she flipped through them. "Lily's teacher. Your neighbor, Mr. Harris. The church group organizer. Ethan, this is exactly what we need. The community is rallying behind you." Ethan picked up one of the letters, recognizing Mrs. Thompson's handwriting. She'd been Lily's kindergarten teacher when they lost Sandra, and she'd helped Lily through those first difficult months. "I'm still nervous," he admitted. "What if Brad shows up with some expensive lawyer? Then we'll have something they don't: truth and community support." Courts take character witnesses very seriously, especially in cases like this. Sarah sorted the letters into a folder. "We already have 15 people willing to testify about your parenting, and more keeping calling." They spent another hour reviewing potential questions. Sarah was thorough, preparing him for even the most difficult scenarios. By the time they finished, afternoon shadows had stretched across the office floor. "One more thing," Sarah said as Ethan stood to leave. "Bring Lily's artwork, the recent pieces, especially anything about family. It helps paint a picture of your home life." Ethan thought of the refrigerator covered in Lily's drawings, each one a bright testament to their life together. "I will." At home that evening, Ethan helped Lily with her homework, trying to maintain their normal routine despite his churning thoughts about tomorrow's hearing. After dinner, they followed their usual bedtime ritual: pajamas, teeth brushing, and a story. Lily climbed into bed, her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. "Daddy? Can we pray like Mommy used to do with me?" Ethan's heart squeezed. Sandra had always led their bedtime prayers, her faith as natural as breathing. He sat on the edge of Lily's bed, taking her small hand in his. "Of course we can, sweetheart." They bowed their heads together, Lily's fingers warm and trusting in his palm. Ethan's voice wavered slightly as he began, "Dear God, thank you for this day, for keeping us safe." Lily squeezed his hand, adding her own simple prayer. "Please help Daddy not be worried anymore. And thank you for making him the best daddy ever." Ethan had to swallow hard before he could continue. "No matter what happens tomorrow, Lily, you're my little girl forever. Nothing will ever change that. Promise?" She looked up at him with Sandra's eyes. "Promise." He kissed her forehead. "I love you to the moon and back." Lily snuggled deeper under her covers, still holding his hand. "And back again," she murmured, her eyes already growing heavy. Ethan sat there in the soft glow of her nightlight, watching as her breathing deepened into sleep. Her small fingers gradually relaxed in his, but he didn't let go. In the quiet of her room, surrounded by stuffed animals and crayon drawings, he found a moment of peace. Whatever tomorrow brought, this was what mattered. This trust, this love, this unbreakable bond between father and daughter. The courthouse steps loomed before them, gray stone rising against the morning sky. Ethan straightened his tie one last time, his hand trembling slightly. Lily stood beside him in her favorite blue dress, her hair neatly braided the way her mother used to do it. "Ready, sweetheart?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lily nodded, slipping her small hand into his. As they approached the entrance, a familiar voice called out, "Ethan! Lily!" Mrs. Rodriguez from the church group stood at the top of the steps, holding a handmade sign that read, "We stand with the Millers." She wasn't alone. Dozens of neighbors and friends had gathered, forming a supportive corridor. Their signs bobbed in the morning breeze. "Kindness is strength, and real heroes choose peace, and we love you, Lily." Ethan's throat tightened as he recognized faces in the crowd. Mr. Harris, the veteran neighbor, stood tall despite his cane. Lily's entire third-grade class had come with their teacher, Mrs. Chen. Even the mother who'd recorded the viral video waved from the crowd. "Look, Daddy!" Lily pointed to her classmates, a smile breaking across her face. They walked up the steps together, surrounded by encouraging smiles and gentle touches on their shoulders. Inside the courthouse, the marble hallway echoed with their footsteps. Sarah Bennett, their lawyer, waited by the courtroom doors in a crisp navy suit. "Good morning," she greeted them warmly. "We've got quite the support team out there." A movement caught Ethan's eye. Brad Thompson stood at the far end of the hall, arms crossed, glaring at them. His expensive suit couldn't hide the bitterness in his expression. A sharp-looking lawyer in pinstripes stood beside him, whispering something in his ear. Ethan pulled Lily closer, shielding her from Brad's hostile stare. Sarah noticed his tension and touched his arm. "Remember what we practiced. Stay calm, speak from the heart, and let the truth do its work." Inside the courtroom, wooden benches filled quickly with supporters. The judge, an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes, called the hearing to order. Brad's lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of Ethan as unstable and aggressive, citing the playground incident as evidence of violent tendencies. Sarah stood calmly when her turn came. "Your Honor, I'd like to show you what actually happened that day." She nodded to a court officer, who wheeled in a screen. The viral video played in perfect clarity. The courtroom watched as Ethan stood his ground at the playground, his voice steady, his posture non-threatening. When Brad tried to provoke him, Ethan remained composed, protecting Lily without escalating the situation. The spontaneous applause from other parents spoke volumes. "Now," Sarah continued, "I'd like to call our first witness." One by one, community members took the stand. Mrs. Chen described how Ethan attended every parent-teacher conference, how he volunteered at school events, how Lily thrived under his care. Mr. Harris spoke about watching Ethan raise Lily alone after Sandra's death, with more grace and strength than most folks could muster. The mother who recorded the video testified about Brad's history of encouraging bullying. Other parents shared similar stories, describing how Ethan's stand had inspired positive changes at the playground. Brad shifted uncomfortably in his chair as testimony mounted. His lawyer's objections grew weaker, dismissed by the judge with increasing impatience. Sarah saved their most important witness for last. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to call Lily Miller." Lily walked to the front, her blue dress swishing softly. She looked tiny in the witness chair, but her voice rang clear when she spoke. "Do you feel safe with your daddy?" Sarah asked gently. "Always," Lily answered without hesitation. "He makes me pancakes when I'm sad, and helps me with math even when it's really hard. When I miss Mommy, he holds me and says it's okay to cry." She looked directly at the judge. "My daddy makes me feel safe." Ethan blinked back tears, remembering all the nights they'd held each other, learning to navigate their grief together. The courtroom had fallen completely silent. The judge removed her glasses, studying the papers before her. "I've heard enough," she said finally. "Mr. Thompson, your accusations are not only unfounded but appear to be maliciously motivated. The video evidence and testimony today show Ms. Miller to be exactly what a parent should be, protective without aggression, strong without intimidation." She turned to Ethan. "Mr. Miller, this court not only dismisses these allegations but commends you. You've demonstrated that true courage often means choosing the harder path of peace. Your daughter is fortunate to have such a father." The gavel struck with finality. Case dismissed. Relief crashed over Ethan like a wave. He sagged in his chair as the courtroom erupted in applause. Lily ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. He held her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling her heart beat against his chest. "We did it, Daddy," she whispered. "We did, sweetheart," he managed, his voice rough with emotion. "We did." The room buzzed with joy around them. Sarah gathered their papers, beaming. Their supporters surrounded them with hugs and congratulations. Through the happy chaos, Ethan noticed Brad and his lawyer slipping out a side door, their defeat evident in every step. But Ethan barely registered their departure. His world had narrowed to this moment, to the feeling of his daughter in his arms, to the knowledge that their little family was safe. He closed his eyes, holding Lily closer, letting the love of their community wash over them both. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the playground equipment, making the metal slides shimmer like ribbons of light. Ethan and Lily walked hand in hand through the park's entrance, their footsteps crunching on the gravel path. It had been exactly 1 week since the custody hearing, and the playground felt different, somehow lighter, more welcoming. "Good morning, Ethan," called Mrs. Chen as she pushed her grandson on the baby swings. Her warm smile reflected the changed atmosphere of their community space. "Morning," Ethan waved back, noticing how Lily's steps had picked up speed as they approached the playground. Gone was her usual hesitation, replaced by an eager bounce in her stride. Mr. Peterson, walking his golden retriever along the park's perimeter, tipped his baseball cap. "Beautiful day, isn't it? Haven't seen Brad's truck around lately." Heard through the grapevine, they packed up and moved to his brother's place 2 towns over. Ethan nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The playground had transformed from a place of anxiety to one of peace. Children's laughter rang out clear and uninhibited, no longer muffled by the shadow of intimidation that Brad's presence had cast. "Daddy, can I go swing?" Lily asked, already pulling toward the empty swing set. Her voice carried a confidence that made Ethan's heart swell. "Of course, sweetie. Go ahead." Lily skipped to the swings, her pigtails bouncing with each step. 2 girls her age, Sophie and Emma from her class, waved excitedly from the monkey bars. "Lily, come swing with us," Sophie called out, scrambling down to join her friend. Ethan settled onto a nearby bench, the same one where he'd spent countless mornings watching Lily play alone. Now he watched as his daughter pumped her legs, swinging higher and higher, her giggles mixing with those of her new friends. The sound was like music, the kind that reminded him of summer afternoons and childhood joy. The morning breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers. Parents chatted easily with one another, sharing coffee from thermal mugs and trading friendly waves. A young mother struggled with a stroller at the park entrance, and 2 other parents immediately moved to help her navigate the gate. Ethan's mind drifted back to that fateful day when he'd finally stood up to Brad. It seemed simultaneously like yesterday and a lifetime ago. One moment of courage, that's all it had taken to start a ripple effect through their entire community. He remembered his late wife's words about kindness being strength, and now he truly understood what she'd meant. Miss Thompson, Lily's teacher, walked by with her dog and paused near his bench. "You know, Ethan, Lily's been different at school lately. More outgoing, more willing to participate in class discussions. Whatever you're doing, it's working." "Thank you," Ethan replied, watching Lily show Sophie how to twist the swing chains to spin in circles. "I think we're both learning to be brave in our own ways." The playground had become more than just a place for children to play. It had transformed into a symbol of community solidarity. Where once parents had watched nervously from the sidelines, they now engaged with each other, sharing stories and keeping collective watch over all the children. "Higher, Daddy! Watch how high I can go," Lily called out, pumping her legs with determination. "I see you, sweetheart. You're doing great." A group of younger children had started a game of tag, their excited shrieks filling the air as they darted between the slide and jungle gym. Their parents looked on with easy smiles, no longer tensing at every raised voice or sudden movement. The morning wore on, sunlight warming the playground as more families arrived. Each new arrival brought fresh greetings and friendly conversations. Some mentioned the viral video that had started it all, thanking Ethan for being the catalyst for positive change in their community. "Your dad's like a superhero," Ethan overheard Sophie telling Lily. "My mom says he showed everybody how to be brave." Lily beamed with pride, her face glowing. "He's the best daddy ever." Eventually, Lily hopped off the swing and ran toward him, her cheeks flushed from play and excitement. She threw herself into his arms with such force that the bench creaked beneath them. Burying her face in his shirt, she hugged him fiercely. "Mom would be proud," she whispered, her voice muffled against his chest. Ethan's eyes welled up with tears as he held his daughter close. Looking up at the clear blue sky, he could almost feel his wife's presence in the gentle breeze, in the warmth of the sun, in the love that surrounded them. The strength of their community enveloped them like a protective embrace, reminding him that they were never truly alone. The playground had become more than just a place where their story had changed. It was where healing had begun, where courage had taken root, and where kindness had proven stronger than fear. In the laughter of children and the warmth of friendship, they had found their way home. Click the next video to find out. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. And tell us in the comments, who do you think that shadowy figure really is? Thank you so much for staying with this story until the very end. It means more than you know. Every single one of you watching is part of this journey, and I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, tell me where you're watching from, and share your thoughts. What did this story stir up for you? If you believe in the power of kindness, courage, and stories that remind us what truly matters, I invite you to hit subscribe and join this community. Together, we're building a space where stories don't just entertain, they heal, inspire, and connect us. From my heart to yours, you are seen, you are valued, and you are not alone. Until next time, stay brave, stay kind, and never forget the ripple effect your choices can create.